Wait, is he serious? Oh my God, did he just say that? Not at his daughter's graduation party. Tell me this isn't happening.
Shh. Look at her face. She's not even flinching.
The story began on a radiant Saturday afternoon at a high-end riverside restaurant in Charleston, South Carolina. The day's final rays of sunlight streamed through the large glass windows, casting shimmering patterns across the crisp white tablecloths. The clinking of wine glasses mingled softly with congratulations for Emily, the girl who had just graduated with honors in communications from Columbia University. The scene looked like a Pinterest-perfect photo of a typical American family, but within seconds, everything fell apart. Gregory Hartwell, my husband of 28 years, stood up, champagne glass in hand, ready to speak. Everyone assumed he would say a few heartfelt words about our daughter's achievements. Instead, his voice rang out clearly, as if delivering a quarterly business update. I've decided to start a new life, without Bianca. No one laughed. Not a single breath was exhaled. Not a clink of silverware on porcelain. Just 50 pairs of eyes staring at me, waiting for tears, shouting, or a dramatic walkout like a primetime TV drama. I did none of that. I smiled. Congratulations on your honesty, I said, oddly calm, like I had just received an email confirming my order had shipped. My name is Bianca Hartwell. I'm 54 years old, and for nearly 3 decades, I've played the role of the one who keeps the family together. I gave up my dream of starting my own company, choosing instead to step back so Gregory could pursue 3 different startups, 2 of which failed miserably, and one that was still rediscovering its purpose. I was the one who stayed up with our daughter during her exam stress, the one who cooked for the entire extended family on Thanksgiving, the one always behind the camera at every family moment. And I was the only one in that room who wasn't shocked. I had known for a long time. From the mysterious charges on the bank statements, from hearing the name Hannah Collins, the young assistant with beachy blonde waves and an overly perfect smile, popping up repeatedly in Gregory's calendar. From the increasing late nights with vague, urgent meetings, women have intuition, and I, with 15 years of experience as a financial director, had audit skills too. I placed a cream-colored envelope next to Gregory's plate. No one saw my hand tremble, because I had stopped trembling long ago. "What's this?" Gregory asked, his triumphant expression shifting to suspicion. "Something you should read later," I said, still calm, still smiling. I turned to Emily, my daughter, still wearing her graduation cap, her eyes wide in disbelief, like someone had yanked her out of the best dream of her life. I kissed her on the cheek. "I'm so proud of you. This day is still yours." Then I stood, smoothed my dress, and turned to the guests who were still holding their breath. "Please, enjoy the rest of your meal. I wish you all a lovely afternoon." And I walked away. No regret, no bowing of the head, only the soft echo of my heels against the polished floor, amid stunned stares, something I'd become all too familiar with over the years. The restaurant door closed behind me, separating me from the rising whispers and nervous glances. June in Charleston was sweltering, the humidity clinging to me like a second skin. But I felt weightless. For the first time in years, I could breathe, truly breathe. Behind me, the door opened again. Rushed footsteps, then Gregory's voice, no longer confident, but rattled. "Bianca, what the hell is going on? What are you doing?" I didn't turn around. I didn't need to turn around. Because every step I took that moment wasn't just leaving a restaurant. It was walking away from an outdated version of myself. I drove away from downtown Charleston, along the cobblestone streets shaded by oak trees that hung low over historic houses. That day, the sky was cloudless, but my heart was as still as water just after someone had dropped the first stone. Gregory thought I was caught off guard, but he didn't know I had been living in what they call surprise for a whole year. Not the kind of surprise that makes you scream, but the kind that aches like chronic back pain. Always there, so familiar you sometimes forget it's not supposed to be. It all started with 36 small transactions. As someone who used to manage multi-million-dollar corporate budgets, I couldn't help but notice the charges under $300 that kept popping up every Friday. First it was a restaurant in Mount Pleasant, then a boutique jewelry store, then beachfront hotel bookings. Gregory said they were client meetings, but I know clients don't wear Chanel and use Charlotte Tilbury lipstick. I didn't confront him, didn't cry. I started taking notes. They say women are jealous, but I wasn't jealous. I documented things with the mindset of an auditor, emotionless, just facts. I printed bank statements, took screenshots of messages whenever Gregory carelessly left his phone unlocked. I hired a private investigator just to confirm that my instincts weren't wrong. Her name was Hannah Collins, 36 years old, a former assistant at Gregory's old firm, now freelancing, and according to Instagram, very fond of cappuccino flat lays, lavender fields, and her feet in bikinis on yachts. I had once handed her a chicken sandwich at a summer backyard party. She called me Miss Bianca when asking for more hot sauce. But numbers don't lie. I found a secondary account under the name G. Thomas, a clever variation of Gregory's name, where he quietly funneled money from our joint account. After 6 months, those petty charges totaled over $50,000, money that should have gone toward Emily's summer tuition, money I had worked overtime during the holiday season to save. I once thought I'd have a conversation, give Gregory a chance to explain. But then I read the message he sent Hannah. After the graduation, I'll tell her. At the restaurant, in front of everyone. She won't make a scene. Bianca is always too polite. That moment, I knew. The conversation was over. There's no room for apologies when someone plots for you to become the silent loser. I decided I would not be a victim in my own story. I went to the law office. I read every page of the prenuptial agreement that Gregory had insisted I sign before our wedding, back when his parents had just gifted him $100,000 to start a business, and he didn't want financial risks. He didn't remember Clause 14. In the case of infidelity, the betrayed party retains all agreed-upon assets. But I remembered clearly, because I was the one who had asked to add that line, to keep it fair for both sides. In the law office, I didn't cry. I asked one question. Can we keep everything quiet until after graduation day? I planned like a chess player, and I knew my next move wouldn't be tears or shouting. It would be proof, legal clauses, and silence, the kind that speaks louder than any scream. Sometimes silence isn't submission. It's the moment you tighten your shoelaces, preparing for the final sprint out of a life that seemed like it was yours but never really was. And I was ready to move forward. Step by step, number by number, page by page. No longer the faint figure behind a successful man, but the woman who knows her worth and would never again let anyone assign it for her. I returned to the dark blue 2-story house in Charleston's historic district, where I had once hung so many dreams on the walls and folded away so many disappointments into drawers. The house was still as quiet as ever, with the late afternoon light gliding down the oak-paneled hallway, illuminating every trace of the seemingly peaceful years. But that evening, I didn't step inside as a wife trying to maintain happiness. I walked in as a woman taking control. I went straight to the bedroom. In the corner of the closet, just as I had guessed, were 2 Samsonite suitcases. Neat, clean, already packed. Gregory was always like that, erratic with work but strangely meticulous when it came to clothes. And leaving. Maybe in his mind, this was his version of leaving responsibly. No shouting, no chaos, just a smooth exit from his wife's life, like a polite guest slipping out of a slightly boring party. But he forgot that I had once been a good player too. Not the kind who shows her cards, but the kind who holds the ace until the very last moment. When someone grows used to enduring, they start strategizing in silence. Inside the envelope I had left on the dinner table wasn't just the divorce papers. There was also a bank statement annotated in Gregory's own handwriting, receipts from restaurants, hotel bookings, and printed message excerpts from iCloud. And of course, a copy of the prenuptial agreement, with Clause 14 clearly underlined in red, a complete strike, a legal slap. I had collected everything over 6 months, met with lawyers, worked with a financial advisor. All the evidence was digitized, encrypted, and stored in 3 separate places. I didn't just do it for me, I did it for Emily. I wasn't going to let her lose faith in her mother the way she was about to lose faith in her father. When the phone began buzzing nonstop that evening, I knew Gregory had read it. Messages from friends came flooding in too. Are you okay? I can't believe he did that. I'm here if you need to talk. I replied to only one person, Emily. I'm okay. This day is still your special day. We'll talk later. I love you. I didn't respond to Gregory. That was the only way to keep the upper hand. Silence is the one thing manipulators can never endure. 3 hours later, the front door slammed open, loud and urgent. I was sitting in the living room, laptop on my lap, still in the emerald dress from the party. Bianca, he yelled, you can't do this. I closed the laptop calmly, as if I were watching a slightly dramatic Netflix episode. You can call your lawyer, I said, voice steady and cold as the night wind from the Ashley River. Don't waste time yelling in someone else's house. This is my house, Gregory protested, but his eyes had already begun to show signs of panic. No, I corrected. It's our house, and according to Clause 14, the one you signed, it now belongs to me. Gregory recoiled as if slapped. He tried to compose himself, switching tactics. We used to love each other, Bianca. We had a whole life together. You can't just throw all that away over a few mistakes. No, I cut in. Not a few mistakes. A campaign, a calculated betrayal. You didn't just betray me. You betrayed our daughter. You planned to deceive both of us until the very last moment, then disappear with that assistant like some trashy movie plot. He stood frozen. I continued, slowly. And one more thing, Gregory. I've frozen all joint accounts. Court order came through this morning. You still have your personal account, if there's anything left in it. He seemed to choke. That was the blow he hadn't seen coming. Gregory had always thought he was in charge of the household finances, but he forgot I once ran the entire budget of a corporation, and this was just a small personal project. As he left, his face a mix of rage, disbelief, and confusion, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt at peace. A deep kind of peace that comes from knowing you're no longer being controlled, no longer upholding an illusion. I poured myself a glass of white wine, stepped out onto the porch, where the lantern light swayed gently in the breeze. Life had just lost something, and in the same breath, found me again. I didn't stay at the house after that night. Early the next morning, I packed a few clothes, necessary documents, and drove to my sister-in-law's house, Diana Hartwell, the only person in Gregory's family I still trusted. Diana lived in a cozy bungalow in West Ashley, not far from the university where she taught American literature. Her home was filled with sunlight, greenery, and bookshelves that reached the ceiling. It was a world apart from the cold suffocation of the house that had once been my sanctuary. When I stepped inside, Diana didn't ask anything. She simply gave me a tight hug and poured 2 glasses of red wine. On the kitchen table, there was a plate of cheese and grapes ready, as if she had known I would come all along. I heard from Emily, she whispered. She cried the whole way home. Gregory turned her graduation day into a stage for his new life debut, I said, letting out a bitter laugh. Diana nodded, her face flashing something between anger and sadness. I honestly didn't expect it, though for a while now I felt something wasn't right. Last Christmas, I caught him and Hannah together. Not the casual kind of encounter, hand in hand. That look between them couldn't be mistaken. I sighed. Why didn't you tell me then? I asked Gregory directly. He laughed and said Hannah was just helping plan a surprise gift for you. I wanted to believe it. But when I saw he wasn't changing, I came to you a week later. Do you remember the lunch we had? I paused. That day, Diana had asked, if something terrible happened, would you be ready to stand on your own? I'd thought it was a philosophical question. Turned out, it was a soft warning. That evening's dinner felt peaceful, at least to the eye. But behind each small story, each sip of wine, was the slow shift of a life rearranging itself. I was no longer the woman who maintained stability. I had started the journey of reorganizing my life from within, and Diana, in her own quiet way, was my first anchor. Near midnight, my phone rang. It was Emily. I'm on my way to Aunt Diana's. You don't have to. No, I need to, her voice cracked. I can't stay home with Dad. Not after today. 30 minutes later, Emily appeared in her wrinkled graduation dress, mascara smudged like blurry ink stains in a forgotten childhood storybook. Mom, why didn't you tell me sooner? I pulled her into my arms. Because I wanted you to have a complete graduation day, a moment untouched by the truths of adulthood. But he already ruined it. Emily sobbed. He hugged me this morning, said he was proud, while just last night he texted her about their perfect exit plan. Diana didn't interrupt. She quietly placed a mug of hot cocoa in front of Emily, like a seasoned mother. Her eyes told me, let the girl say everything. I used to think, if anything bad happened to our family, at least Mom and Dad would protect me from it. But now I see, the only one who's always thought about me is you, Mom. Her words were like a gentle dagger. Didn't bleed, but sank deep into my heart. I didn't cry. I just held her hand and silently promised, from now on, I won't hide anything anymore. That night, 3 women sat together under the warm yellow light of the living room. One who had once been the patient's sister-in-law, one a strong and single professor, and one young woman newly stepped out of the fog of childhood illusion. We didn't talk about Gregory. We talked about what would come next. The court hearing, Emily's internship plans, my intention to open my own office. I realized sometimes you don't need the whole world on your side. You just need 2 people, one who understands your past and one who believes in your future. And that night, under a small roof filled with books and the soft rustle of wind, I felt it clearly. I was no longer alone. It was pouring rain on Tuesday morning, the day of the preliminary hearing for my divorce with Gregory. The Charleston sky was gray, matching the atmosphere that lay ahead. I sat behind the wheel in the courthouse parking lot, listening to the rain beating against the windshield like the quickened heartbeat of someone about to face a turning point with no return. I wasn't afraid. I had prepared for this day down to the smallest detail. Color-printed documents, marked with sticky notes, financial transaction evidence arranged in chronological order, and, most importantly, the prenuptial agreement, with clause number 14 underlined in red ink. Infidelity equals forfeiture of financial rights. Gregory arrived 10 minutes after me. He stepped out of a rented SUV, not the Mercedes he used to proudly flaunt to his friends. The suit he wore was probably the oldest one in his once luxurious wardrobe. I recognized it because I had given it to him on our 20th wedding anniversary. He looked smaller, no longer the man who could dominate every conversation at the family dinner table. Just someone clinging to the hope that the court wouldn't side with the woman he used to see as weak. Gregory's lawyer, a young man who looked like he had just graduated law school, hurried into the courtroom carrying a disorganized stack of documents and a scuffed plastic rolling suitcase. I smiled faintly. Gregory was always good at building appearances, but when things collapsed, he had no one competent left to defend him. My lawyer, Philip Anderson, came and sat beside me. His face was calm, every feature radiating the caution and confidence of someone who had handled hundreds of divorces with far larger assets. "We're fine," he said gently. "Let them speak first." The hearing began. The judge, a silver-haired woman with a neatly tied bun and eyes sharp as blades, quickly brought everything to order. There was no room for emotion here, only law and facts. "The defense claims the prenuptial agreement has expired over time," Gregory's lawyer presented, stammering as he approached the section about the infidelity clause. "However," Philip stood, his voice clear as a bell, "if I may refer to clause number 18, the agreement remains in effect throughout the duration of the marriage, plus any legal proceedings resulting from its dissolution. There is no expiration date." The judge nodded, flipped through the files, then stopped at the bank statement, where I had clearly marked each off-track transaction. "There is concrete evidence that Mr. Hartwell used joint assets to support another personal relationship during the marriage," she said without looking at anyone. "A direct violation of financial disclosure requirements under Clause 23. Gregory slumped into his chair, his eyes reddening. I didn't feel joy. I felt justice. Hearing conclusion, the joint accounts would remain frozen until the financial audit was complete. I was granted the right to retain the house. Gregory could only access his personal account, which I knew held less than $30,000 after paying the retainer for his attorney. As I stepped out of the courtroom, Gregory followed me down the hallway, rain beginning to fall diagonally against the glass doors. "Bianca, please," he rasped. "We had 28 years together. You can't just cut it off like this." I turned, eyes meeting his. "It was already cut off, Gregory. Not today. but the day you looked at me and chose deceit, not just through actions, but through planning, silence, and that cold stare. I made a mistake. No, a mistake happens in a moment. What you did was intentional. I walked away, leaving behind the man who had once been my entire world, now just a shadow in a courthouse hallway. The Charleston sky was still raining, but I had learned how to walk steadily in the storm. 2 weeks after the preliminary hearing, I received a call from Diana on a late afternoon. Her voice was both surprised and tinged with barely concealed satisfaction. Cassandra has moved out of the apartment. I paused in the middle of reorganizing files in my temporary office, a small room on the third floor of an old building overlooking the Cooper River. Green potted plants and pastel-colored sticky notes surrounded me, signaling a new beginning taking shape. And then? I asked calmly. She told Jennifer that she wasn't signing up for a man with nothing but a past and a bank loan. Diana paused. She called Gregory a failed investment. I didn't laugh, but I felt a quiet relief settle into my chest. Not because of Gregory's downfall, but because of the confirmation. I had been right not to turn back. Gregory had lost more than assets. He lost the image he had spent his whole life polishing, the successful man, the ideal patriarch, the reliable husband. After the hearing, old friends gradually avoided him. The birthday calls he used to receive fell silent. Business partners pulled away, not wanting to be associated with someone whose finances were frozen due to marital fraud. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding my life. I rented an official office, still small but cozy and professional. On the glass door, the name was etched, Caldwell Financial Transitions. I welcomed my first clients, mostly middle-aged women, coming to me with eyes full of hurt, but voices surprisingly resolute. A woman named Rachel came in on Monday, tears still clinging to her lashes as she explained how her husband had secretly mortgaged their home to invest in cryptocurrency. Another woman named Marcia had just lost her husband and didn't know how to access any bank accounts because he handled everything. I sat with them for hours, explained the steps, printed documents, guided them on how to research, track, protect, and, most importantly, reclaim their voice in their own lives. Once Emily came by the office after work. "Mom, I'm really proud of you," she said, her hand grazing the neatly stacked documents on my desk. "You're doing something amazing." I looked at her, deeply moved. She had gone through the family upheaval without breaking. She'd grown, strong, aware, and still kind. "You once stood up for me in front of your father," I recalled that moment. "I won't forget that." Emily took my hand. "I learned from you how to stand up for what's right, and sometimes the right thing is to walk away." We sat together in the soft glow of the evening light, and I realized you don't need a perfect family to raise a resilient child. You just need a mother who isn't afraid of the truth, of change, or of standing alone. A few days later, I saw Gregory at Whole Foods. He was alone, head down, pushing a cart with a few cheap items, looking no different than a tired uncle after a long day. He glanced at me, seemed about to say something, then stopped. I gave a slight nod, as if to say, "I don't hate you. I just don't need you anymore." I walked away without looking back. My heart felt light. The best revenge isn't making someone hurt. It's letting them see you're still thriving, still strong, still moving forward, while they remain trapped in their own mistakes. The final court date arrived, on a brilliant autumn morning soaked in golden sunlight. A day that, had things not taken a different turn, would have marked the 29th wedding anniversary of Gregory Hartwell and me. A round number, evoking memories of evenings with chocolate cake and candlelight in the backyard. But instead, I came to court with my hair neatly tied back, a honey-colored blazer, and in my hand, everything I needed to close a never-ending chapter. The courthouse that day was quiet, without the chaos or drama of the first hearing. Gregory sat across from me, looking gaunt, thinner than I remembered. The same old suit, but his eyes today held something else. No more resistance, no more confidence, only exhaustion. My lawyer, Philip, greeted me with a slight nod. Gregory's new lawyer, a middle-aged woman who looked more seasoned than the rookie before, was busy flipping through files and avoiding my gaze. Clearly, their side no longer hoped to overturn the situation. The judge, the same one from the preliminary hearing, read the terms aloud in a steady, emotionless voice. But each word echoed in my head. The court acknowledges the legality and validity of the prenuptial agreement signed in 1996, unaffected by the passage of time. A definitive full stop to all denial. Gregory was left with only his personal assets. I retained the house in Charleston, the majority of the investments, and the entire retirement account, which had originally been funded from my family inheritance, an account Gregory had repeatedly tried to label as joint. Cassandra did not appear. According to rumors from a few old friends, she had moved to Atlanta and was now dating an older real estate investor, someone with a clearer financial record. When the hearing concluded, I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt relieved, as if I had finally taken off the armor I'd worn for years in a battle where the enemy had once held my hand through every storm. Gregory approached as I was about to leave the court. "Bianca," he said, his voice low, "I was wrong, and I know that, but I still hope that maybe some part of you could forgive me." I looked at him and clearly saw a man who had lost his way. "Forgiveness isn't a gift I carry around to hand out," I replied gently. "Forgiveness is something I give to myself, so I can move on without carrying bitterness." "I've lost everything," Gregory whispered. I placed a hand over my heart, and I've found myself. Then I turned away, without looking back. Not because I was cold, but because I had learned. Some things, if you keep looking at them, only make you lose your way. 6 months later, my Caldwell Financial Transitions office expanded. I hired 2 associates, one a former tax consultant, the other a retired divorce financial attorney. Both were women who had risen from broken marriages. We supported clients not just with skills, but with lived experience. Every figure, every line of notes carried empathy. Emily visited the new office one spring afternoon. "Mom, do you remember what day this is?" she asked, setting a teacup on the desk. "Of course," I smiled. "The fateful day." "I used to think it was the day you were abandoned." She looked at me, "but it turned out to be the day you were set free." I squeezed her hand, feeling every breath of peace clearly. I was no longer Gregory Hartwell's wife. I was Bianca Caldwell, head of a financial firm, mother of a strong daughter, a woman who had learned not to fear loss, and most importantly, a woman who had chosen herself.